Hey guys, Dissimulator here. I just thought since the Lizardmen book has been out for about 6 months, and everyone's had plenty of time to use all the new units and the changed units and really form solid opinions, and we can really see how everything works in the meta, even with the new books that have come out since it. I'd do a kind of 6-month state of the book review. And it's going to go very in-depth, very long, because most of the reviews that came out right after the book was released kind of were just summaries. So I'm going to break it up into parts so it's easier to do, and I'm going to go through all the characters, all the units, core, special characters, and then look at all the magic lores. So this part is Lords and Heroes, and let's get started. Okay, first I wanted to talk about my rating systems. Pretty simple. Just wanted to make clear that I don't, when I'm thinking something's actually bad, as opposed to when it's not. Any unit, I started off at a 3 as an average choice, and then if it was good, I bumped it up. If I thought it wasn't very good, I bumped it down. Even if I thought it was good, but there were better choices, such as a Source Old Blood, being good, but not as cheap as a Scarvet, who's basically the same, usually we give it a 3. If the one thing that's not on here is if I did think that they were bad, a bad unit usually wouldn't want to take, but they had a very specific role that they could fill, such as Jungle Swarms granting poison, I put a little plus next to the rating, just as in they're bad, except in this one specific situation. Okay. And like I said, we're doing Lords and Heroes this time. Okay, the first Lord that everyone should know if you play Lizardmen, it's part of pretty much every Lizardmen tournament army out there, is the Slann. The Slann is an extremely versatile Lord, possibly one of the best level 4s out there because he comes with 5 wounds and a 4 ward save base. He's leadership 9, 10 if you give him that banner. He's our general. He's usually our BSB. He's a very good center for our army, like to base around, because he's able to be the general and the BSB. He combines that leadership bubble with that reroll bubble. You don't have to worry about keeping units within both of them. They're both in the same spot, and him in Temple Guard is a very solid rock for the army. Even though he is 300 points base, you have to keep in mind that most Lord level casters start at level 3 and need a 35 point upgrade. And then you need another 45 point upgrade to get him the 4-up ward. That's not even counting the 2 extra wounds that he has. So if you take that into account, he's really like a 210 point Lord level caster, which is basically the same as a lot of other Lord level casters out there. Ogres, Empire, Dark Elves, they're all right around that 200 point level. In addition to that, he's got really high leadership, cold-blooded, access to all the disciplines, access to all the lores. He's got a lot of extra stuff to go with the, if you think about it, very slight increase in cost. In addition to that, the last pro with the Slann is that he can be our general, our BSB, and our level 4. Those are 3 things that pretty much every tournament army in Warhammer Fantasy has, and being able to take them all in one character allows us actually a lot of extra points, because you have 200 point general, 200 point level 4 caster, 150 point BSB. That adds up a lot, and you have 3 different characters to protect. With this, you can just focus on protecting the Slann, and he will end up being around 450 points, but you're not paying for a second character defensively kitted to run your BSB, and then you have to, and usually people will run their level 4 being their general to consolidate further, but then you have to protect that Wizard Lord and that Captain with your BSB flag. At the same time, though, getting into cons, First con is that he's your general, your BSB, and your level 4. I mean, if your Slann dies, that's all three of your important characters going down at once. I mean, it's very much an eggs in one basket mentality that some people don't really like doing. Another thing is, players going up against Lizardmen armies know that they're probably going to have a Slann. The Slann's going to probably be kitted out in one of few very specific ways. He's either going to be ethereal with death, or in a Temple Guard bunker with some other lore, and he's going to have the leadership 10 bubble rerollable. It's very predictable, especially, that's never a good thing for your opponents to know what's going to happen before it does. Especially in something like Blood and Glory, where the Slann is worth 3 points of your fortitude. That's usually about half of your fortitude, and then another point, if he's in a Temple Guard bunker, is in the banner in front of him, so that unit is one Dweller's Blow away from breaking your fortitude off him or not. I'd like to compare the Slann to the Ventilation Shaft and the Death Star in Star Wars, in that while our army is very, very good and very strong while the Slann is alive, him dying is basically not really equivalent, but pretty close to the vampire general dying. I mean, we don't start crumbling, but we lose a good 500 points, our magic, our leadership, and our BSB all at once. That being said, overall, the Slann, I mean, yeah, he's got his downsides, but he's one of the best lords in the game. There's no way to contest that. So the Slann definitely gets a 5 for being outstanding. Next, we get to the Old Blood, and before I wanted to preface this by saying that both the Old Blood and the Scar Veteran, I'm going to do a separate review for them being the Scar Vet Cowboy, the source character on a Cold One, because their role is so much different on that you almost treat them more like a monster than a character, and that they just go off by themselves and do their own thing and hit really hard. So this review is just for the Source Old Blood on foot or on a Carnosaur. The Cold One does not come into this part. It's going to be separate. The pros of Source Old Blood is an extremely killy lord. Not quite as killy as a vampire lord, but he's strength 5, toughness 5, 5 attacks, 2 up armor almost without trying. He has the big pro that he has over a Scar Veteran is, he's got 50 points more magic items. Unfortunately, that's pretty much all he has. He has 1 extra attack and 1 extra weapon skill. That's it. All of his weapon options are more expensive. Oh, and he's got 1 higher armor save, but usually that doesn't matter for source characters because they hit the armor cap so quickly. He's 60 points more expensive than a Scar Veteran. He cuts points into your Lord allotment away from your Slann. The Carnosaur is a great mount. It's a cannon magnet, but it does hit like a freight train with its strength 7 D3 wounds on 4 attacks. Blood Roar itself is great. It makes Terror actually like something usable. But if you put him on a Carnosaur, you are definitely not taking a Slann. There's no way you can fit that short of, I think, 4,000 points. And it really comes down to Scarvets can be put on Carnosaurs. Scarvets are in Heroes. Scarvets are cheaper. So unless I would have given an Old Blood a 1, honestly, but there is the situation where you want some extremely killy character. You want to give him 100 points of magic items, or you think of just a naked Old Blood. Because, a naked Old Blood you can fit with a Slann, but at that point, you're better off just taking a Scarvet anyway. So, Source Old Bloods, they're definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. And if for some reason you don't want to take a Slann, like you think you're gonna run low magic, go Slannless, and just do a bunch of Engines of the Gods and Bastillodons and Skink Priests, Source Old Blood is a great character overall. he's just vastly outclassed by a Scar veteran. So, I mean, if you have the spare points, upgrade him to get, you're basically paying 60 points to get an extra 50 points of magic items, and an extra attack. But overall, yeah, that's okay. And now we get to Saurus Scar veterans. And again, this is not them on a cold one. This is them either on foot or on a Carnosaur, because cold one Scar veterans are just completely different in every way. These are really fantastic. They're pretty cheap. They've got really good basic stat lines. They're tough, killy. They're a solid BSB if you don't want to put that banner on a source and on a slot and have all your eggs in one basket. If you're taking a Carnosaur, you're really taking it for the Carnosaur, not so much the guy on top. And these guys are 60 points cheaper for a 220 point mount. You can't really afford to be spending that extra 60 points for one more attack. So these are where you're going to want to get your Carnosaurs if you want to use those. The real cons for these is, we're already spending around 400 points for a Slan. Excuse me. So we're already spending a lot on characters, and we can't really afford to be spending half of our army on characters. We're not vampires. There's a better use for them than on foot. When we get to Cowboys in a minute, you'll see that. And then, while they do have that role for being a BSB alternative to the Slan, Lizardmen are possibly the one army I would ever consider going BSB-less with. Because, even Dwarves with their pretty much Leadership 10 across the board, Leadership 8 Cold-Blooded is equal, if not better, than Leadership 10. And yeah, really, we're a really tough army. Cold-Blooded is insane. Obviously, if you have a lot of skinks that are going to be around where your general and BSB are, you need that BSB because they're only Leadership 5. But a full Saurus Lizardman army, if you don't want to put that BSB on the Slan, let's say for some reason you filled up your Good Lord points and you don't have 25 points for the BSB, just don't bother, honestly. I know I'm going to get some flack for saying that because BSBs are auto-include in 8th edition, but Cold-Blooded is pretty nice. Okay, here we are. This is where we fill our entire hero section, pretty much, in 8th edition. They are what every monster... I'm not going to treat these guys as characters. I'm going to treat them as monsters, and they are what every monster wishes it could be. The reason I say I'm not going to treat them as characters is because traditionally characters are used to buff units or maybe be a troubleshooter like a captain on a Pegasus or something. And while these guys can fulfill that role of troubleshooter, just running around taking care of whatever needs to be done at the time, and that's probably what they're best at, truthfully they are just charge them at something scary, and their strength 7, 1-up, and 5-up will just tear apart everything. Additionally, they're only 150 points, which is half the price of an equivalent monster, and there isn't really an equivalent monster because most monsters have pretty crappy armor and no ward. But yeah, the average build for a Scar Veteran Cowboy gives him Weapon Skill 5, Strength 7, Toughness 5, 2 wounds, 4 attacks, plus another 2 attacks at Strength 4, a 1-up armor, and then have that either be rerollable 1-up armor or a 4 to 5-up ward save. And usually a 2-up ward against Flaming, too, to deal with that Flaming Banner unit, or if you happen to play in an area with Chaos Dwarves. Yeah, these guys are incredible. 90% of tournament Lizardman lists will have at least one. Most will have two. Occasionally, you'll see one with three. These are powerhouse units. The only downsides to them, honestly, an old blood cowboy means you can fit it in with a Slan, but it means you have to do a pretty cheap Slan. In lower point games, your hero points are needed for your priest and your BSB and whatever else when you don't have a Slan. So you can't really run these in low point games, but most tournaments are around 2400, so that doesn't really matter for tournament scene. And then a really big con is that you can only fit around 3 of them. Honestly, if you use these correctly, they'll rarely even die during the course of the game. They will smash through armor and toughness, and forgive me if I am going on too much about them, but I really do think that these are our best character in the new book. Okay, then we get to the Skink Priest, and Skink Priests are not as good as the previous characters are. You're always going to see a couple in a list for a Scroll Caddy, because the Slan's going to be taking the Channeling Staff usually. Arcane Vassal for magic missiles and direct damage, especially if the Slan is running the all signature spells lore, because that has 3 magic missiles and a direct damage, if I remember correctly. Maybe another direct damage? No, just 1 direct damage, but that's 4 spells to channel through this thing. They're not bad casters in and of themselves. The main problem is your Slan's going to be using so much of your dice that they'll only ever actually cast if your Slan breaks concentration, or you really, really, really need that Wisens or Ice Shard for whatever combat. They're not bad casters. They're a little squishy, being only toughness 2 and 6 of armor. So that kind of sucks. Even an Empire, they're the same point as an Empire hero caster, but that one gets access to all 4 lores and is toughness 3. So there's that. But they are cheap overall, because they're usually not going to be level 2. Neat trick is to give one the Forbidden Rod and just let it sacrifice itself to give your Slan a bunch of extra dice one turn. If you're using him as an item caddy, I'd give him a really good choice. If you're using other ones, honestly, I'd rather go with some Bastiladons or something, unless it's a low point game. Okay, Skink Chief. This is most of our characters are really, really good compared to most books. Everyone's got to have a bad egg, and the Skink Chief, still not terrible. We're lucky that we're not New Dark Elves with the Fleet Master or anything. All of our characters are in a really good place compared to a lot of books. They all have a role. That's why, as I was saying with the rating system, this does have a role. That's why it has the 2+ on it. It is a dirt cheap character. It's only 40 points. For that price tag, it's not that bad. There's a couple of rules. If you're running a Monster Mash list, you can squeeze in an extra Stegodon, because you only can fit 2 Ancients in Rare, so you can fit a 3rd Ancient in characters. You can run him on a Ripperdactyl to give yourself a really tough Ripperdactyl, because you can get these guys down to... You can get them down to a 2-up armor if you give them good magic armor. So you can get them down pretty survivable. Like the heavy armor with a 5-up ward, and then the enchanted shield gives them a 1-up armor, actually, I think. If I did the math correctly really quick, a 1-up armor and a 5-up ward is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Even if it is just a 2-up armor and I mess something up there. Anyway, they make a pretty good Mage Hunter when they're on a Ripperdactyl. They make a really, really good War Machine Hunter when they're on a Pterodon. you can give them some stuff to help that out. But other than a little toolbox, pterodon, ripperdactyl, whatever, there's no real good use for them. If you're running a very skink-oriented list, you can spam these guys to give any cohort blocks some decent combat power, because cohorts honestly are not very good at combat because they're 5-point toughness 2 basic crappy infantry. The one real downside to these guys is that one they don't really have a role other than that, because Scarvets are better BSB, Scarvets are better in combat, Scarvet Cowboys are better at troubleshooting. The only thing these have over Cowboys is that they can fly. But the FAQ, the lack of the FAQ, rather, is really killing them. Their Ripperdactyl doesn't technically get the Toad Rage rule, so if you run a unit of Ripperdactyls and they drop Toads, this guy won't get the Frenzy from it. I mean, the boosted Frenzy. And they got rid of the rule where these could join Pterodon and Ripperdactyl units, so you can't use them to buff up a unit of Pterodon War Machine Hunters, or have a really awesome unit of Ripperdactyls, or heck, even a unit of 3 of these guys would be really good. But they don't get that. And we are 6 months out and still don't have an FAQ, so it doesn't look like they're going to get that anytime soon. Overall, this is the ranking I would put our characters. Cowboys are over Slann simply because you can run Slannless Lizardmen, you can run a couple Priests, some Bastiladons, Engine of the Gods. If you're in an area that allows special characters, Teto Echo makes a fantastic Slann replacement, as we'll see when I do the special characters review. But Cowboys are our best combat option right now. A Cowboy on the charge or not on the charge is comparable to an Ancient Stegodon, I would say, for 100 less points. Stegodon has more wounds, and it has the blowpipes, and is better against monstrous infantry with sharpened horns, that's for sure. And possibly monsters, but a Cowboy is comparable against infantry to a Stegodon, that's for sure. I'm not going to say better or worse, he's comparable. Scarvets are extremely useful. Throwing a Scarvet with Great Weapon and Light Armor is only 90 points into any source blocks you have. Really ups the killing power of those blocks, makes it so they're not as susceptible to high armor, because Strength 4 is not going to cut through armor that much, but you got that Strength 7 guy in there, he's going to. It is only 90 points, so that's my favorite way to use Scarvets not on a Cowboy, is just take 2 with just mundane upgrades, drop them in my 2 source blocks, and let them rack up some combat res. Obviously our Slann goes second there. He's extremely important, even though you can build without him. And then the Old Blood Priest and Chief all tie because they each are good in certain builds. Priest is our item caddy. Chief is, War Machine Hunter, flying troubleshooter. And then Old Blood is if you just really want that killy character on a Carnosaur, or just that really killy 100-point magic item character. That's the one real reason to use an Old Blood. Next time, I'm going to review our very, very voluminous core section of 2 different units, essentially, and yeah, that'll be a short video.